Chapter 1. The Decline of the Family and the Arranged Marriage. In the prosperous and opportunity-filled business world of America, where hidden undercurrents lurked beneath the surface, my family, the Lind family, was once a dazzling star. Our business empire spanned across New York, from high-end luxury boutiques to bustling commercial skyscrapers, from fashionable clothing brands to cutting-edge technology companies. Our name was synonymous with wealth and prestige. As the heiress of the family, I, Alia Lind, grew up surrounded by admiration and envy. Lavish parties, exquisite gowns, and dazzling jewelry were part of my daily life. I was accustomed to being the center of attention, to being pursued and flattered, believing that such a life would continue indefinitely, like the lights of New York that never dim. However, fate turned its wheels mercilessly in another direction. A sudden business crisis swept through our family like a raging storm. Ruthless suppression from competitors, drastic market changes, and misjudged decisions within the family caused our empire to crumble at an alarming rate. My parents, in a desperate attempt to save the family, exhausted all possible means. They visited countless business partners, attended negotiation after negotiation, and even mortgaged family properties and assets. Yet nothing could prevent our inevitable downfall. The glory we once had disappeared like fleeting smoke, vanishing in an instant. Those who once greeted us with warm smiles now avoided us as if we carried a plague. The once lively and prestigious Lind estate grew eerily quiet. At the family's darkest hour, my parents made a decision I could not accept. They arranged for me to marry the youngest son of the Charles family. The Charles family was a dominant force in the business world, with influence spanning finance, real estate, and energy. They were true giants in the industry. However, their youngest son was rumored to be crippled and had only 3 years left to live. Fear and resentment filled my heart at the thought of marrying a man I had never met. I did not want to be a pawn in a business transaction, nor did I want to marry someone I did not love, let alone someone burdened with a severe illness. I longed for love, for the freedom to live my life as I wished, rather than being shackled by the interests of my family. Yet, under immense pressure from my family, I had no choice. My parents pleaded with me, their faces etched with exhaustion and despair, their eyes glistening with helpless tears. They told me this marriage was our family's only hope, the only way for us to rise from the ashes and reclaim our former glory. As I looked into their weary, desperate eyes, my heart ached with sorrow and helplessness. In the end, despite the bitterness and unwillingness weighing on me, I agreed to the marriage. I knew I could not stand by and watch my family collapse before my eyes. Chapter 2. The Unfortunate Wedding. The wedding day arrived as scheduled, despite my overwhelming anxiety and reluctance. The moment the Charles family sent out invitations, New York's high society swarmed in like sharks sensing blood. Everyone dressed in their finest attire, eager to witness this highly anticipated union. The Charles family's luxurious estate on Long Island, already magnificent on any given day, had been transformed into something out of a dreamlike palace for the occasion. Outside the grand estate gates, a long driveway was lined with meticulously trimmed greenery and vibrant dew-kissed flowers. The multicolored blooms swayed gently in the breeze as if welcoming the arriving guests. One by one, luxury cars pulled up to the entrance, where uniformed chauffeurs respectfully opened the doors for their distinguished passengers. The men, clad in immaculate suits with perfectly knotted ties and polished leather shoes, exuded elegance and confidence. The women, adorned in bespoke evening gowns and dazzling jewelry, carried themselves with an air of refinement, their meticulously applied makeup enhancing their poised and graceful smiles. Meanwhile, I sat quietly at the vanity in my dressing room, draped in a snow-white wedding gown. The mirror reflected my pale, exhausted face, my eyes filled with profound fear and confusion. The dress, meticulously crafted by a world-renowned designer hired by the Charles family, was flawless in every detail. Intricate floral embroidery adorned the satin fabric, and countless shimmering crystals embellished the train, casting mesmerizing glimmers under the light. Yet despite its beauty, the gown felt like an unbearably heavy shackle, suffocating me with its weight. My attendants bustled around me, carefully adjusting the hem of my gown and delicately placing the veil over my head. Their professional smiles remained unwavering as they murmured gentle words of reassurance. But their voices faded into an indistinct hum, as if I were trapped in a vacuum. The only sound I could hear was the rapid pounding of my own heartbeat, loud, urgent, and filled with despair. Then the solemn chime of the wedding bells echoed through the estate. The moment had come. With my father by my side, I stepped out of the room and descended the grand staircase covered in a red carpet. Each step felt unbearably heavy, as if invisible chains were dragging me down. My father's hand, rough and trembling slightly, held my arm tightly. I could sense his own tension and helplessness. As I entered the church, a wave of dizziness washed over me. The grand hall was adorned with dazzling opulence. Golden chandeliers cast a soft yet brilliant glow across the space, illuminating the towering religious murals on the walls, their vivid colors and lifelike figures exuding an almost divine presence. The grand pipe organ played deep, solemn notes, marking the commencement of the ceremony. All eyes turned toward me. The guests gazed at me with a mixture of curiosity, scrutiny, and unreadable emotions. I searched the crowd for my groom, my heart caught between fear and reluctant anticipation. Then at last he appeared. He was pushed into the church in a wheelchair. His face was as pale as paper, completely devoid of color. His eyes, hollow and distant, seemed utterly soulless. The black suit he wore was ill-fitting, hanging loosely on his frail frame, making him appear even more fragile. His disheveled hair fell over part of his face, obscuring his expression. He never even looked at me. After a brief appearance before the guests, he was quickly wheeled away. At that moment, time seemed to freeze. The church fell into a deafening silence, so quiet that only the sound of breathing could be heard. Then a tide of hushed whispers broke the stillness. The guests leaned toward one another, murmuring in hushed but cutting voices, their words piercing into my heart like knives. I heard the groom is crippled and only has 3 years left to live. Poor bride. Indeed. Why would she agree to such a marriage? She must have been sacrificed for her family's benefit. Look at her expression, she clearly doesn't want this. What an awkward wedding. I bit my lip, fighting back tears, struggling to maintain composure. Under the priest's solemn guidance, I mechanically recited my vows. My lips trembled slightly, but I forced myself to go through the motions, all the while asking myself, what will my future hold? Is this marriage a turning point in my destiny, or merely a deeper descent into an inescapable abyss? As the ceremony concluded, the grand banquet commenced in the estate's lavish halls. Laughter and music intertwined, filling the air with a festive atmosphere. Guests clinked glasses, indulged in gourmet delicacies, and reveled in the celebration. But I stood alone in the shadows, forgotten by the world. I watched the lively scene from a distance, my heart weighed down by an overwhelming sense of loneliness and sorrow. My gaze drifted toward the distant estate gates, as if they symbolized the escape I longed for. But deep down I knew I could never take that step. I was already bound to this marriage, shackled to a future unknown. Chapter 3. The Discovery After Marriage. After the wedding, I was placed in a luxurious villa owned by the Charles family. Everything here was extravagant. A spacious bedroom furnished with exquisite furniture and the softest bed, a grand living room adorned with priceless artwork and high-end rugs, and a breathtaking garden filled with an array of vibrant flowers and lush greenery. Yet despite the opulence, I felt like a caged bird, imprisoned in a golden cage with no freedom, no joy. I rarely saw my husband. It was said that he was in poor health and spent most of his time resting in his room. The unfamiliar environment filled me with unease and fear. I had no idea what my future held, and each day passed in solitude and confusion. Until one day, while taking a walk in the garden, I unexpectedly saw a stranger. He was a tall and handsome man, running briskly through the garden with an effortless grace. Dressed in sportswear, he exuded vitality, his face glowing with a bright, sunlit smile. The wind tousled his hair, making him look even more striking. His eyes radiated confidence and determination. I blinked in disbelief, rubbing my eyes to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. But when he turned his head, I realized with shock. It was my husband, Arthur Charles. I was so stunned that I couldn't speak. He too appeared momentarily flustered upon seeing me. His steps faltered, his body stiffened slightly, and a flicker of tension flashed through his eyes. "Your legs," I stammered, struggling to process what I was seeing. Arthur remained silent for a moment before sighing deeply. Then he confessed everything. It turned out that his legs had long since healed. Years ago, he had been the victim of a ruthless scheme in a business rivalry. A staged car accident had left him severely injured. To protect himself from further attacks and avoid becoming a target once again, he chose to feign disability, retreating into the shadows of his family while secretly planning his comeback. Every day he underwent rigorous physical therapy, working tirelessly to regain his strength. At the same time, he gathered evidence against his enemies, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back and reclaim his rightful power. Listening to his story, I was overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. On one hand, I was furious at his deception. I felt like a pawn in his carefully crafted scheme, manipulated without my knowledge. My dignity, my emotions, everything I had believed about my marriage had been a lie. I had thought I was marrying a terminally ill man, only to discover that it had all been a fabrication. On the other hand, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. I understood the dangers and pressures he had faced in the ruthless world of business. To survive, to protect himself and his family, he had been forced to make difficult choices. But regardless of his reasons, I could not accept this marriage any longer. I want a divorce, I told him firmly. I can't stay in this marriage built on lies. I want my freedom. For a fleeting moment, pain flashed across Arthur's eyes, but it quickly vanished, replaced by unwavering determination. No, he said coldly. I won't agree to it. His voice was low, steady, and filled with an undeniable authority. I stared at him in frustration. Why are you doing this to me? You don't love me. So why keep me trapped here? His gaze softened, and to my surprise there was warmth in his eyes. You're wrong, Alia, he said gently. I married you not for family interests but because I love you. I froze, unable to believe what I had just heard. Arthur continued, his voice filled with sincerity. I have been watching you for a long time, long before you even knew I existed. The first time I saw you was at a charity gala. You wore a blue gown that made you look like an angel, dancing gracefully among the crowd. Your smile, your kindness, and your courage, they captivated me. From that moment I started following your life, learning about your likes, your dreams. I knew about the struggles you endured after your family's decline. I knew about the sacrifices you made for them. I wanted to protect you, to give you the happiness you deserved. I know that bringing you into my world this way was wrong, he admitted, his voice laced with regret. But I was afraid. Afraid that if I didn't act, you would marry someone else and I would lose my chance to be with you forever. Chapter 4. A Wavering Heart and Growing Closeness. Despite Arthur's heartfelt confession, which was as warm as the spring sun melting away the ice, the pain of his past deceptions still lingered like a deep chasm between us. I couldn't simply erase the betrayal or accept everything so easily. However, when I calmed down and seriously considered the matter of divorce, I found myself sinking into deep confusion and hesitation. If I truly left, ending this marriage, where would I go? Would I return to my now fallen family? But that place was nothing more than a shadow of its former glory, filled with decline and despair. The once thriving legacy had long crumbled, leaving behind nothing but crushing debt and a business on the verge of collapse. My parents had pinned all their hopes on this marriage, believing it to be the key to reviving our family's fortune. If I recklessly chose divorce, I would be shattering their final hope, leaving them to face an even harsher reality. How could they bear such a blow? What hardships would they have to endure? The thought of it made my heart tighten painfully, as if an invisible hand were squeezing it. After enduring an agonizing inner struggle, I gradually calmed down and ultimately decided to remain in the Charles family, for now. I told myself it was only a temporary arrangement, a chance to gather my thoughts and carefully plan my next steps. It was also a way to protect my family and my parents. From that moment on, things began to change subtly. Arthur no longer avoided me as he had before. It was as if the moment he confessed everything, he had finally let go of his fears and defenses. Now he showered me with care and attention, revealing his sincerity in every little detail. Each morning, before the first rays of sunlight fully seeped through the sheer curtains, a soft knock would sound at my door. Soon after, Arthur would step inside, carrying a carefully prepared breakfast. The tray always held my favorite foods, a steaming cup of rich, fragrant coffee, and a selection of fresh, vibrant fruits. He would place the tray on the small bedside table, smiling gently. "Darling, wake up and have something to eat. A beautiful day starts with breakfast," he would say in a tender voice, as if speaking to something incredibly precious. After breakfast, he would ask about my plans for the day. If I had none, he would suggest a stroll in the garden. Hand in hand, we would walk along the winding paths surrounded by blooming flowers. With great patience, he would introduce me to each flower, telling me about its characteristics and the stories behind it. Those flowers, which had once seemed to me like mere decorations, now came alive with meaning and depth through his words. We would pause to watch butterflies flutter gracefully among the petals and listen to the cheerful chirping of birds in the trees. The gentle breeze would brush against my cheeks, filling me with a rare sense of peace and contentment. At lunchtime, he would take me to the most charming dining hall in the villa. The table was always elegantly set with crisp white linens, delicate silverware, and a fresh floral centerpiece. He would pull out my chair with care, waiting for me to be seated before taking his own place. During our meals, he would share fascinating stories about the business world or recount amusing childhood anecdotes, often making me laugh uncontrollably. The once intimidating world of commerce became lively and engaging through his vivid storytelling. In the afternoons, he sometimes invited me to visit his study. The room was lined with bookshelves brimming with a vast collection, from ancient literary classics to the latest business journals. He would proudly show me his rare book collection and the notebooks filled with his insights on business and life. Patiently, he would answer my questions about the books, engaging me in discussions about different philosophies and perspectives. Through these conversations, I came to appreciate the depth of his knowledge and the sharpness of his intellect. As evening approached and the setting sun cast a golden glow over the villa, we would sit together on a garden bench, quietly admiring the breathtaking sunset. He would gently take my hand in his, intertwining our fingers. In that moment, time seemed to stand still. The world around us faded, leaving only the warmth of his touch and the serene, romantic atmosphere. As the days passed, I began to learn more about Arthur. I discovered that he was not just a brilliant businessman but also a man with a delicate, emotional soul. He was passionate about life and genuinely cared for those around him. Little by little, the walls I had built around my heart started to crumble. I found myself reconsidering our relationship. Perhaps this marriage wasn't as unbearable as I had once believed. Perhaps I could truly find happiness here. Chapter 5. Crisis unfolds, love and protection. As time quietly passed, my relationship with Arthur deepened after overcoming many trials. However, the internal conflicts within the Charles family were like a ticking time bomb, growing more intense beneath the surface, threatening to explode at any moment. Arthur's older brothers, jealous and fearful of his rising influence and authority, refused to accept his growing power within the family. Unwilling to see him ascend to dominance, they secretly conspired, orchestrating schemes to drag him down from the peak of power. During various family meetings, his brothers deliberately made things difficult for him. Every reform and business strategy he proposed was met with fierce opposition and resistance. Their words were sharp, their attitudes rigid, and they sought to weaken Arthur's authority in front of everyone. "Arthur, your so-called reforms are nothing but foolish fantasies. They will only throw the family into chaos and crisis. The traditions and models our family has followed for generations are the only correct way. Stop trying to destroy them." One of his brothers glared at him, slamming his hand on the table as he shouted furiously. Despite their unreasonable provocations and aggressive attacks, Arthur remained calm and composed. He patiently explained his vision and strategies, using detailed data and clear logic to illustrate the necessity and feasibility of his reforms. The world is constantly evolving. If our family wants to survive and thrive in the competitive business world, we must embrace change. Every measure I propose is the result of careful thought and thorough research. They will bring new opportunities and vitality to our family. His voice was firm, his gaze unwavering, exuding an undeniable sense of authority. But his brothers were unwilling to lose in a mere war of words. In secret, they formed alliances with other discontented family members, creating a powerful opposition force. They spread malicious rumors, tarnishing Arthur's reputation and sowing seeds of discord within the family. I heard that Arthur will stop at nothing to achieve his goals, even at the expense of the family's interests. How can someone like that lead us? Like a spreading plague, these rumors quickly took root and soon unease and suspicion filled the family. Many who once supported Arthur began to waver. Just as tensions within the family reached a breaking point, an unexpected crisis struck. One late night while Arthur and I were sound asleep, a sudden rush of hurried footsteps and loud noises shattered the silence. Arthur sat up instantly, his sharp eyes darting toward the door. "Arthur, something's wrong." I clung to his arm, my voice trembling. He gently patted my hand, whispering, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Before his words could fully settle, a group of masked men, armed and dangerous, burst into our room. Their eyes were cold and ruthless, their faces concealed by black cloth. "Arthur, tonight will be your last," one of them snarled, lunging forward with a weapon. Arthur did not flinch. Reacting swiftly, he shoved me behind him, grabbed a nearby chair as a makeshift weapon, and engaged in a fierce battle with the intruders. Chaos erupted. Furniture was overturned, objects crashed to the floor, and the entire room descended into violent disarray. Arthur's movements were swift and precise, dodging the attackers' strikes while seeking openings to counter. But the intruders outnumbered him and they were ruthless. As the struggle intensified, Arthur found himself at a disadvantage. Seeing him in danger, my heart pounded with fear. I wanted to rush to his aid, but he shouted firmly, "Elia, stay back. Find a place to hide." But how could I stand idly by watching him fight alone? Seizing an opportunity, I grabbed a vase from the floor and hurled it at one of the attackers. My interference enraged them. Turning their attention to me, one of the masked men lunged forward, a dagger gleaming in his hand, aiming straight for me. Terror gripped me. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the sharp pain, but it never came. Instead, I heard a muffled groan. Opening my eyes, I saw Arthur standing protectively in front of me, the dagger embedded in his side, blood soaking through his clothes. "Arthur!" I let out a heart-wrenching scream, tears blurring my vision. Despite the agony, Arthur forced a reassuring smile, his hand gently caressing my cheek. "Elia, it's okay. I won't let anything happen to you." With the last of his strength, he fought off the remaining attackers, ultimately forcing them to retreat. As he collapsed into my arms, his body weakened from the blood loss. I held him tightly, my heart aching unbearably. Why did you do that? Why take the blade from me?" My sobs shook my entire body. His lips curved into a faint smile, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because I love you. Your safety matters more to me than my own life." In the days that followed, I stayed by Arthur's bedside, never leaving his side. I tended to his wounds with the utmost care, watching over him as he recovered. As I gazed at his pale face, I made a silent vow. No matter what hardships or challenges awaited us, I would stand by him, unwavering and devoted. This near-death crisis made us realize just how much we meant to each other. Our bond, forged through trials and tribulations, had become even stronger. But Arthur also understood that if he truly wanted to secure the family's future, he had to act swiftly and decisively, to root out the forces that threatened its stability once and for all. Chapter 6. The Seizure of Power. In the long and perilous struggle for power, Arthur was like a fearless warrior, forging ahead on a path riddled with thorns. To secure absolute control over the Charles family, he engaged in a breathtaking battle of strategy and resilience. At the outset, faced with the intricate web of internal factions, Arthur remained composed, carefully analyzing the situation while discreetly gathering intelligence. He sought to understand the interests, weaknesses, and influence of each family member. Many nights, he remained awake in his dimly lit study, poring over stacks of documents and charts, meticulously planning every move and anticipating every possible variable. He knew that a single misstep could result in total defeat, shattering both his dreams and the family's future. As Arthur's rise became increasingly apparent, his brothers and their allies escalated their resistance. They seized every opportunity to slander him, attempting to tarnish his reputation among other family members. During family meetings, they aggressively attacked his reform plans, claiming that these measures would plunge the family into an unprecedented crisis and were a betrayal of tradition. Despite the relentless accusations, Arthur never backed down. Standing before the assembled family members, he remained calm and unwavering. With solid data and logical reasoning, he dismantled his brothers' arguments one by one. He articulated his vision for reform, painting a compelling picture of the family's future under his leadership. His words resonated with many, stirring admiration among those present. But this was only the beginning. Power struggles were far more ruthless than mere debates. Refusing to admit defeat in verbal conflicts, his brothers sought external allies, conspiring with competitors to suppress Arthur on the business front. They secretly struck deals with rivals, attempting to corner him in the marketplace. However, Arthur had long foreseen their schemes. With his sharp business acumen and extensive network, he uncovered their plots in advance. He swiftly adjusted his business strategy. On one hand, he reinforced the family's existing enterprises and strengthened ties with key partners. On the other, he aggressively expanded into new markets, seeking fresh avenues for growth. In the face of economic turbulence, he demonstrated exceptional leadership and decisive judgment, ensuring that the family business remained stable and prosperous. At the same time, Arthur systematically purged corruption within the family. He established a specialized investigative team to probe into illicit activities that harmed the family's interests. No lead was ignored and no piece of evidence went unverified. After painstaking efforts, he finally gathered irrefutable proof of his brothers' and their accomplices' illegal dealings. When these damning pieces of evidence were unveiled at a family meeting, the entire room fell into stunned silence. The once arrogant opposition stood frozen, their faces pale with fear and despair. Through unwavering determination, sharp intellect, and relentless effort, Arthur ultimately secured control over the Charles family. He swiftly implemented sweeping reforms across the family's business empire. In management, he introduced modern corporate governance systems, restructured the organization, clarified departmental responsibilities, and significantly improved operational efficiency and decision-making speed. He also prioritized talent development, recruiting and nurturing outstanding individuals who infused the family business with fresh energy and innovation. In business expansion, Arthur proactively forged strategic alliances with internationally renowned corporations. He personally led every critical negotiation, using his exceptional negotiation skills and keen market insights to finalize a series of mutually beneficial partnerships. These collaborations not only broadened the family's global business footprint but also elevated its status and influence on the international stage. And I, too, became his most trusted partner in this journey. Leveraging my business expertise, I assisted Arthur in managing family affairs. Together, we attended high-profile business conferences, facing challenges and skepticism from all sides as a team. Arthur, with his authority and expertise, took the lead in key discussions and decisions, while I provided supplementary insights and strategic recommendations. We developed growth strategies, conducted in-depth research on market trends, industry shifts, and competitors' moves. Every decision was carefully debated and validated to ensure precision and success. In the face of complex business dilemmas, we trusted and supported each other, always working together to find the best solutions. In those intense yet fulfilling days, our bond deepened, and our trust became unshakable. Whether navigating fierce business competition or overcoming internal family conflicts, we stood side by side, unwavering in our commitment. We became each other's strongest pillar, the most seamless team. In this dynamic world of business and power, we were writing our own brilliant chapter, witnessing the Charles family's rise to an even brighter future under our leadership. Chapter 7: Renewing Our Vows. On a bright, breezy day, Arthur, filled with deep affection, meticulously planned a surprise and brought me to the very church where we had once held our wedding, a ceremony that had been clouded with regret. As the car slowly approached the church, my heart pounded like a frightened deer, filled with both nervousness and anticipation. The church, bathed in sunlight, looked solemn and majestic, but as we got closer, I was surprised to find that its interior had been transformed into a scene straight out of a fairy tale, warm, romantic, and breathtakingly beautiful. The grand doors stood open, and at the entrance rows of vibrant red roses adorned both sides, their petals glistening with dewdrops that sparkled under the sunlight, filling the air with a rich, sweet fragrance. Walking down the aisle, I saw delicate white ribbons draping elegantly along the pews, fluttering gently in the breeze as if whispering blessings of love. Arthur held my hand, his steps steady and unwavering as he led me into this place that carried such deep significance for us. His palm was broad and warm, radiating a comforting strength that gradually eased my anxious heart. He turned to look at me, his gaze filled with tenderness and devotion. In a soft yet resolute voice he said, "Alia, this is where our story began. I once made a mistake in how I started our relationship, but today I want to rewrite our future with my sincerity and love." At the front of the church, a stunning floral arch stood tall, composed of intertwined blossoms forming a magnificent display. Beneath the arch, Arthur gently released my hand and slowly knelt on one knee. From his pocket he retrieved a small velvet box and carefully opened it, revealing a dazzling engagement ring. The diamond, catching the light, shimmered in a mesmerizing array of colors, while the tiny gemstones encircling it sparkled like scattered stars, so exquisite that I couldn't tear my eyes away. Arthur looked up at me, his gaze locked onto mine. His voice, though slightly trembling with emotion, was firm and sincere. "Alia, through all these days I've come to understand just how irreplaceable you are in my life. You are my light in the darkness, my driving force, the one I wish to cherish and protect for the rest of my life. I once used deception to keep you by my side, but now I want to spend my life proving my love for you. Will you marry me?" Staring at the man before me, memories of our journey together flooded my mind. The misunderstandings, the arguments, the gradual understanding, and the unwavering companionship. Scene after scene flashed through my thoughts, each one a testament to the bond we had built. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision, yet my heart overflowed with warmth and happiness. I nodded fervently, my voice choked with emotion. "Yes, I will." A brilliant smile lit up Arthur's face. He stood, slipping the ring onto my finger with the utmost care before pulling me into a tight embrace. In that moment, the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of our heartbeats and the overwhelming joy that filled the air. Surrounding us, our family and friends erupted into applause, their faces beaming with genuine happiness. They had witnessed our struggles and triumphs, and now they shared in our long-awaited joy. The priest stepped forward, his voice solemn yet filled with warmth as he led us in reaffirming our vows. "Arthur, do you take Alia as your wife, to stand by her side in times of prosperity and hardship, in wealth and poverty, in sickness and health, to love and cherish her for all eternity?" "I do," Arthur answered, his voice unwavering. "Alia, do you take Arthur as your husband, to walk through life's challenges hand in hand, to support and love him unconditionally, and to protect this bond for the rest of your days?" "I do," I replied, my voice quivering with excitement but filled with certainty. As the priest pronounced his blessing, we sealed our vows with a deep, heartfelt kiss. It was a kiss of forgiveness, of renewal, and of endless promise. In that moment, we were no longer the couple burdened by past mistakes and misunderstandings. We were partners stepping into a new chapter of our lives, bound by love and trust, ready to face the future together. This time there were no forced smiles, no hidden regrets, only pure love and heartfelt blessings. Before our loved ones, we reaffirmed our commitment and embraced the happiness that awaited us. After the ceremony, we began planning our future together, envisioning the countless beautiful moments we would share. Life would bring its challenges, but as long as we held hands and faced them as one, nothing could stand in the way of our pursuit of happiness. Chapter 8. Married Life in a New Crisis. After our wedding, Arthur and I worked side by side, devoting ourselves wholeheartedly to managing the family business. Our lives became busy and fulfilling, filled with business meetings, market research, and negotiations with partners. Yet, amid the seemingly monotonous daily grind of the corporate world, we always managed to find moments of warmth and sweetness that belonged only to us. Each morning we exercised together in the villa's gym, encouraging and supporting each other, filling our days with energy and vitality. During breakfast we would sit at the dining table sharing our plans and ideas for the day's work. Occasionally we would joke around, filling the room with laughter and lightheartedness. At work we complemented each other perfectly, operating as a seamless team. In the conference room, Arthur led every critical negotiation with his sharp business acumen and decisive leadership. Meanwhile, I provided detailed insights and strategic analysis, ensuring every aspect was meticulously considered. Together, we studied market trends, analyzed competitors, and crafted strategies that kept our family enterprise at the forefront of the industry. Beyond business success, we were also committed to philanthropy. The charity foundation we established became a beacon of hope, spreading warmth to those in need. We funded education in impoverished areas, building schools and donating books and supplies to children who longed for knowledge. Watching them study diligently in brightly lit classrooms, their eyes filled with dreams and determination, made us feel that all our efforts were worthwhile. In the field of medical aid, we provided hospitals in remote areas with advanced equipment, sponsored medical research projects, and worked to improve healthcare conditions, saving countless lives. We personally visited the families who had received assistance, witnessing the renewed hope in their eyes. Knowing that our contributions had changed lives filled us with a deep sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. However, fate seemed determined to challenge our happiness. One seemingly ordinary evening, as the golden hues of the sunset bathed the villa's garden, I took a leisurely stroll, savoring the tranquil moment. Suddenly, several shadowy figures emerged from the darkness. Before I could react, a cloth soaked in a pungent, numbing scent was pressed over my mouth and nose. My vision blurred, and within moments, darkness consumed me. When Arthur received the news of my abduction, it was as if a bolt of lightning had struck him. His world collapsed into chaos. Panic and fury surged through his veins, shattering his usual composure. His sharp, calculating mind was now clouded with worry and desperation. Without hesitation, he mobilized all available resources, hiring the best private investigators, providing the police with every possible clue, and personally leading the family's security team in the search. Every second that passed was agonizing for him. He paced relentlessly in his office, his eyes fixated on his phone and computer screen, terrified of missing even the smallest update. He communicated ceaselessly with investigators and law enforcement, his voice hoarse from stress and exhaustion. Each time his phone rang, he answered immediately, his heart torn between hope and dread, praying for good news yet fearing the worst. Meanwhile, in the darkness of my captivity, I clung to a single belief: Arthur would come for me. No matter the circumstances, I refused to surrender to despair. I searched for opportunities to escape, enduring the harsh conditions and emotional torment with unwavering determination. As long as I believed in Arthur, I would not break. At last, after a perilous chase and fierce confrontation, Arthur found the place where I was being held. He stormed in with the rescue team like a raging lion, his only thought to save me. In the ensuing struggle, the kidnappers were subdued, and finally, Arthur pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly as if he would never let go again. But in protecting me, he had suffered serious injuries. Seeing his pale face and the blood staining his clothes, my heart clenched with unbearable pain and guilt. Tears streamed down my face as I gripped his hand, unwilling to let go, afraid that if I did, he would slip away from me. "Arthur, why are you so reckless? Why would you risk your life like this?" I sobbed, my voice breaking. Arthur managed a weak smile, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because you are my everything. I can't lose you." Chapter 9. Cherishing and Growing. Under my devoted care, Arthur gradually recovered from his injuries. This crisis had made us cherish each other even more and deepened our understanding of how fragile and precious life truly is. We decided to slow down, to step away from the relentless pace of business, and to spend more time with our family and friends. We attended family gatherings together, chatted and traveled with friends, and found joy in the simplicity of everyday life. As time passed, our children grew into capable and responsible adults, inheriting not only our business but also our values. They displayed extraordinary talent and leadership in the corporate world, taking the family enterprise to new heights. Beyond their professional expertise, they possessed innovative minds and a strong sense of social responsibility. They actively engaged in charitable causes, addressed pressing social issues, and worked hard to make meaningful contributions to society. Watching our children flourish filled our hearts with pride and gratitude. They were the continuation of our legacy, the hope of our future. We hoped that they would bravely pursue their own dreams, carve out their own paths, and create their own successes in life. The years passed in the blink of an eye. Arthur and I became a legendary couple in New York's high society, our love story whispered as an enduring tale. From the initial misunderstandings and deception to the deep affection and trust we built over time, our bond only grew stronger. Our journey proved to the world that true love can overcome any obstacle, and that as long as love remains in one's heart, happiness will always be within reach. Now, having walked through countless seasons hand in hand, our love remained as strong as ever. Sitting together on a bench in our garden watching the sun set, we reminisced about the moments that had shaped our lives. We knew that the road ahead was still long, but as long as we had each other, as long as we supported one another, there was no challenge we couldn't overcome. And so we believed that our love would continue, eternal, unyielding, and legendary.